and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes, and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and thanks so much for coming back. But for those of you out there who are new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda in the fridge. Cheers, my friends. I'm not sure if anyone has a drink. Oh, we got a ginger beer. We got a LaCroix. We have someone looking aimlessly for something. And a coffee or wine? I don't know what's in there. It could be anything. It's so ambiguous. I love it. So I am sitting here today with 4/4. This is the whole gang, correct? 4/4 of Pittsburgh's finest. Take me with you. Make some noise for the internet. Everyone's happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're here. How's it going, everyone? How are we hanging in there?
Surviving.
Great. That's all we can do. I asked you before we started recording about how you've all been holding up in the quarantine, and you said that you haven't seen each other in person since this all went down, really.
Well, we actually live in the same house.
Okay.
We're like, see podcasting from separate rooms. Sorry for the trouble. But we just don't hang out with each other, so it's been a few months.
Okay. So how has it been, just fighting the urge to just practice and work on stuff and get the ball rolling on these things? Do you think you're going to get together soon? I feel like it's been a little bit different for everybody that I know. Where are you all at right now with this?
Well, we've been doing a lot of work on stuff that's been really cool. We've been recording from home. We've been working on a video, which we've never done before. We've been kind of, I think, thinking in a different way about promotion. And so in a way, it's given us, I think, the opportunity to kind of try different things or concentrate on different things. Because normally when we get together, we just want to play.
Sure.
We just have so much fun jamming and making music, and that's most of what we do. And every once in a while, we're like, all right, let's have a band meeting and plan things. But for the most part, we just, we love to play. So in a way, it's been there's other stuff that we've been doing, and it's been good. But I don't know, I miss you guys. I miss playing together. So.
It's definitely been really cool to see friends that I have in the way that they're utilizing this time, because I do think a lot of people are utilizing it pretty productively, which is really awesome to see. And it's great knowing that you're taking that time to work on those little extracurricular things that maybe you may not have, because being adults in bands, it's not the easiest thing in the world. We have 20 minutes a week to maybe get together and practice if we're lucky. So, you're just like, we got to play these songs because we have a show next week, and all your time goes to that. And then you're not thinking about music videos or merch designs or album artwork or recording or, all that stuff, right?
Yeah. First of all, we don't actually live together. I was joking. Yeah, it's like a totally different group than it was a couple months ago. We had amassed all these, a whole album's worth of new songs. Mm-hmm. And, we were slowly going through them, perfecting them or whatever. And now, we're doing a bunch of different things, like the video. We're doing, really working on one particular song that we're going to be releasing. Not getting ready for a show like we had been.
Yeah. Join the club.
Yeah, and there are some people who actually do get together. Yeah, I think if all of a sudden we were able to play, it'd be like, oh, cool, we can play a show again. Wait a minute, we haven't practiced in 6 months.
Yeah,
compared to some other bands who they do get together.
Yeah. I mean, we're still getting together, and I play in 3 bands, and all 3 bands have been pretty active, and I'm still like working and still like honestly, a whole lot of my life hasn't really changed. So it's been like kind of hard for me to wrestle with the reality of what's going on because my world doesn't feel that different, aside from the fact that I'm not spending my weekends at, Brillo Box and Cativo anymore. I'm just like hanging out at home.
Yeah, I finally have a valid reason to avoid everyone and stay home. I'm pretty thankful for it.
Hell yeah. So we should probably talk a bit more about specifically not who, because we know who Take Me With You is, but what is the band? Leslie, help us out here. Let the people know what it is that you do. How would you classify it?
What I like about the band is I feel like it kind of lives between genres. It's kind of dream poppy, it's kind of synth poppy, it's kind of like got 80s influences, it's got modern influences, it's kind of a mixture of a lot of different things, and that's something I really like about it. The band itself, I think we always equate it to kind of like something separate or like a little bit like bigger than ourselves. When we're like writing songs, we always talk about how we feel like we're contributing to Take Me With You, which is almost like its own entity and not just like the four of us. It's something like a little bit beyond us that we're contributing to. I really like that take on things.
Absolutely. So you have an album that came out a year ago, specifically to the date. I was told if this was another lie, someone's going to be in trouble. Someone's getting coal in their stockings if they're lying to me about this. But you put this out a year ago, A Building, A Dreaming. It's on bandcamp.com, the website, specifically tmwy.bandcamp.com. And what can you tell me about this release?
We worked on it pretty long and hard. It was actually all self-produced, basically. I got to give credit to Thomas, who did all the mixing and mastering on it himself. We didn't go anywhere professional for that, but we recorded everything ourselves and did the mixing and mastering and sourced a local artist for the cover work to keep everything 100% Pittsburgh.
The album cover is really cool. I'm actually looking at it right now, and you can't see it, but people that are watching the podcast can see it on the screen. This is super, super cool. Who did this art?
Art's by a woman named Laura Krasno.
Nice.
Yeah, we found her through, I'm blanking on the name, the Pittsburgh Print Collective, I think it's called. We were looking for a local artist to do the art, and we just sort of started paging through different people who were part of this group, because I'd seen an exhibition that they did, that the group did, and I was like, there's probably somebody here. So we were looking at it all together, and as soon as we got to her stuff, we were just like, this. And we even kind of came to an agreement pretty quickly that this was an image that we all really liked. And so we approached her, and she was cool with us using it, and she liked the music, and she worked with us to kind of transform it into an album cover and work on the lettering and all that. And it was really exciting to work with her, because we're just such fans of her stuff. That's great. That's such a cool story. There are a lot of people that will, poo-poo and be all when it comes to the local music scene. And sure, maybe if you want to be the next goddamn Taylor Swift, this ain't the town for you. But I feel like if you just want to be, a successful underground DIY band, there's so many resources here, from, so many fun bands to play with, so many cool people to meet, and artists that you can interact with, people to collaborate with. And it's a really, really great town that if you just go out and say hi to some people, you can make a lot of cool stuff happen without needing to, source art offline from somebody that you never met. It's always fun whenever someone has that like personal connection to, the artwork and the people that are in control of everything with the project. What's been, your experience so far now? I'm not too sure. I guess let's do this. Let's rewind. I don't have a rewind sound effect. I kind of wish I did, but yeah, thank you for putting it in. So prior to A Building, A Dreaming, Thomas, you recorded this album, right? That's what I heard.
That's the rumor. So, prior to this coming out, what was the history of the band? How long had you been playing before putting this out? Was this like your first thing that you put out, or was there like a bigger backstory behind the band?
So Elizabeth, Jesse, and I started in 2016. We weren't playing out. We're just like in a basement writing songs for a long time. 2017, we put out one song. Was called "Take Me With You." We called ourselves "Take Me With You" after our song, because we were looking for. We wanted to do this like 80s influenced kind of synth thing,
Yeah.
And we thought, well, I think we need keyboard players. That's what we all said.
It's a good start.
We had Jesse was playing bass guitar, Elizabeth singing, I was playing drums. So we went through a lot of keyboard players. I would write some songs on the keyboard, like that first song we put out was me doing the synths, but I wasn't going to do that live. Like her whole idea was we wanted to do like synth pop, but as a live band. Like everything is going to be live. Like I'm playing electronic drum set. Originally, we were going to say, we won't mess around with backing tracks as if I thought people might really care about that. It turns out people don't really care anymore, which is fine.
There's more rock bands on the X that don't have guitars than ever before in my life. It's so weird. The world's changing. I feel old. I don't know how I've gone from get all these like this thing where I was always like, I think it would be really cool if people experimented more with electronics and rock music, to now where I'm like, get the fucking keyboards out of here. I'm tired of it. No, I love this shit, but I'm just, sometimes it's like, if I want to hear a rock song, I want to hear a rock song. But I think that I'm just like, I don't know. I'm turning 30. How old am I? I'm 35. So I feel like I'm getting into my stages where it's okay to start being a curmudgeon. So I'm just going to kind of embrace it, but be self-aware, because I don't want to be unaware that I'm being a curmudgeon, because then nobody will want to be around me. None of us are getting any younger, as we all probably are well aware. Life, it happens. So
that makes me think of the Bjorn song. I'll never be younger.
Shout outs to Bjorn. So what I was going to say is that, we're all adults here. We're all responsible individuals. I think I'm just kind of meeting you all for the first time, but I'm assuming we're all responsible individuals here. So when it comes to playing in a band, making music at this point in time in our lives now, what drives you all to still do this? Because there's so much other stuff that we could be doing, especially now, with the lockdown. It's like putting time and energy into this thing. Obviously, it must be important to all of you.
I mean, I've been doing music my whole life. I've never, as soon as I could find myself a band, I've been in a band, and it's just always been this like vital part of my life. And songwriting, especially for me, just helps me figure stuff out. Like, it helps me kind of work stuff through, like, even if we're just improvising and I'm just making all these weird like noises and eventually they become words. Like, I don't know, I realize things about what I was feeling or thinking that I didn't even know before I'd kind of gone through it in that way. So I can't imagine not doing that. I think I would become very confused, and I love doing it with other people. It's just so much more, it feels so much more alive, and kind of to what Leslie was saying, to be part of something that's bigger than yourself, to be able to do something that's so personal and yet is also more than you. So, Leslie, how did you wind up with all these crazy people?
So, I was actually at Garfield night markets one day, like 3 years ago in like April. And I was at Bantha Tea House, I remember. And I just like looked at the billboard, like the bulletin board, and I just saw like keyboardist wanted on this sign. And so my background is that I actually have a music ed degree from Duquesne, and I teach music and like some other things at a school called Nazareth Prep. It's a private urban school in Emsworth. It's a really cool place. But going through that, kind of being more classically trained on the piano, I always felt like, oh, I don't know how to like be in like a cool band. Like all I know is how to play like in an orchestra or like in a,
Sure.
ensemble marching band in high school or whatever. So, I was at that point, I had started playing in a polka band that one of my friends had started, and I was in that for a while. It's called Unnecessary Polka. And I'm not in that band anymore, but it was a lot of fun. But that was my first experience being in a band that like, wasn't like a school band. And I was at the point where I was like, oh, I really want to challenge myself. Like, I want to learn like what it means to be in a band. I want to like create my own music and see what that's like with people. And it seems sort of out of reach, but, for whatever reason, I was with my friend at the time, and they encouraged me to like check this out and send an email. And so I emailed, and I guess, Thomas, you probably wrote me back. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had like a giant Yamaha like keyboard with like internal speakers that I just like brought to the practice space one day, like no synthesizer, like nothing. Like I had no idea what I was doing.
And you're running the synth now in the band.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I ended up getting one on I just like got one on eBay, like Innovation, Ultranova, which may or may like knowing more about like the band and the genre now may or may not have been like the best choice, but we've like worked with it. And then I've gotten into like running like soft synths and using MIDI keyboards.
Yeah.
I still have so much to learn. Like, honestly, I feel like you guys, the rest of the band knows more about synthesizers than I still do, but like,
you got it.
It's just been so cool.
My
like,
suggestion to you would be for soft synths, the Yuhi Diva. It is so sick. All of your songs will probably sound like some Faith songs, but that's okay because it's a really good synth. So
what did you say it was again?
Yuhi is the brand U-He, Yuhi, and it's called Diva.
Okay.
It is rad. It is a really, really awesome soft synth. It has like a ton of like all the like classic Prophet, Juno sounds, a lot of Moog stuff. It's cool if you're doing like 80s stuff.
That's a good tip because I'm always like, it's just so overwhelming still to me to like boil down like what's out there into stuff that's actually usable. It's like so overwhelming.
Yeah, but thankfully we have youtube.com, the website where, you can just type in, best soft synths 2020 and you can watch a bunch of dorks play, video game music at you for like 4 hours until you find something that sounds like, oh, that sounds cool. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make this the Leslie hour, but I am really curious about one more thing regarding, your place in this band. Since you were classically trained, did you find like trying to maybe strip back that classical training and playing more like simple synthesizer stuff? Maybe if you're doing like more monophonic stuff, is it like kind of weird trying to learn? Are you like, does it almost feel like you're learning how to play a different instrument, even though the keys are the same?
Yeah, I would say I've learned a lot about how like kind of the placement of the lines and like it's more about the compositional elements and like how it all plays together with the rest of the band than it is about like my technical ability. Like my technical ability, like I feel like anyone that's taken piano lessons for like 5 years of their life, maybe less, could probably like play anything that I play in the band, but it's more about the crafting of the sound in relation to everything else that's really challenging to me and really cool.
Totally. I think that it's always so fun to talk with people that have a background similar to yours. I don't know what your personal background is just with music in general, prior to playing in this band, if you listen to a lot of different music, or were you like one of those kids that kind of grew up? Because I've met people that like just grew up like playing music because their parents played music and they never listened to music until they were like a teenager. And it's like, whoa, like, what was your story there?
I get what you're saying there. I would say that, geez, in high school, this is almost like embarrassing, but I was like so into like pop punk and like going to like Warped Tour.
Hey, that's fine.
And and I've really branched out a lot since then. I feel like
from Warped Tour to the polka band.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I listened to polka. I just like one of my friends like was getting a group together to play for something. He was like, "Hey, can you play this? You want to join me for this? Here's the music." Or like, here's the set list. And it was literally all written in like Ukrainian like characters and stuff. Because it was originally for like Ukrainian church event or something. And then it kind of spiraled from there. But I don't know how to give you like a good answer to that.
No, that was
I've explored a lot more in my 20s than I did before. That's for sure.
Well, okay. So you grew up, you went to Warped Tour, you had friends, you liked embarrassing music. It's fine. Join the club. It's all good. It seems like before you hopped in the chat, I was talking with Jesse about I'm wearing a Daughters t-shirt right now, and he mentioned that he listened to them back in 2006. I'm like, yeah, I'm still wearing their t-shirt. I haven't grown up in a lot of ways. So I'm curious then, Jesse, let's move on. Now it's your turn. You're in the hot seat, my friend. So if you were listening to some wacky, spazzy, loud, angry stuff, 15 years ago, what was your trajectory? Are you still what got you into playing music? Let's go with that question.
Well, first of all, I have to mention that I listened to a band that was literally named Spaz.
Okay.
That was one of my bigger eras of music. I went through a lot of different changes because I started out very young listening to music. My first albums were Metallica's Black Album and the Savage Garden album that had Truly Madly Deeply on it.
Wow, that's some yin and yang, buddy.
And I listened to the Savage Garden album way more than the Metallica album.
Okay, all right.
So I consider myself pretty cool. Then from there, it evolved through all sorts of different tastes, listening to like Nine Inch Nails and Eminem whenever I was like 12, and then getting into new metal, Slipknot and Cold Chamber and Mushroom Head.
How old are you?
Into that. I'm sorry?
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay. All right. So you're a couple years younger than me. Cause I just feel like I'm like talking to a mirror right now. It's really funny.
And then I went through a big punk phase, joined my first band whenever I was 16 in the local high school crust punk band, and went to power violence and like mathy grindcore along the lines of Daughters and Psyopus, and went through chaotic screamo like Orchid. And then I've decided to become an adult and start playing music where people sang. So then I came to this band.
Sure. So the one thing that I always like talking about with people who have I can't talk. People who have a similar background to you is, coming from that punk scene, hardcore, metal, like that era, Did you notice a shift in the people and like the environment and the feel of shows going from being at those things all the time to maybe playing with other bands that maybe, like playing shows with Take Me With You? Does it feel different? Does the environment feel different, or does it still just feel like people in a room?
There's definitely instances where our shows have a different vibe, especially when the audience is mostly made up of my family who actually want to listen to a band of mine for once. There is still the element of like a DIY local community music scene whenever we play our shows, that I've experienced ever since going to Roboto for the first time in 2006.
Yeah.
The faces are a little different. The clothing has changed and all that, but more or less the same appreciation for building a community centered around music.
Now, you might not play any of that type of stuff anymore, but do you still indulge in any of the chaos, or is it completely behind you?
I get a taste every once in a while. I brought up Discharge with my friends a week ago, and then I just went through and listened to all their albums.
Nice.
Just to relive my my old D-beat crust punk days. Sometimes I listen to some power violence still, but mostly I'm listening to like goth, dark dance, and synth pop stuff.
Cool. Yeah, it's always fun to like, find out the stuff that people are getting into. I recently, last week, I had Clinton, the singer from The Common Heart, on my show, and he was talking about how like all they listen to in the van is metal. I was like, really? like you're like the sole kings and queens of Pittsburgh, but I guess if they're on the road, they're like, yeah, we're gonna listen to some heavy metal. I'm like, hell yeah, I fuck with it. It's great.
I've had that too. Usually I'm not listening to the kind of music that I'm playing at the time. When I was in a punk band, I was listening to power violence, which isn't that much of a stretch, just a little faster and shorter. When I was in a power violence band, I was listening to Screamo. When I was in Screamo, I was listening to shoegaze. And now that I'm in a new wave synth pop band, I don't listen to any music now. I'm complete. I've listened to everything.
Fair enough. Well, you may be surprised. There's always some wacky stuff out there. So, Thomas, my friend, what got you into doing this music thing?
Well, back in the 80s, I studied the radio, like for... That's what there was in the 80s.
Yeah,
there was the radio. You're just like, okay, if you say so.
I'm just giving you a heck. Don't worry about me.
and I learned the drums back then. So, and I already knew how to play, when I'm listening to like Genesis and Rush or whatever I was listening to. Then when I got into new wave, punk, hardcore, all that hit for me, like in 1988, I was a drummer in demand. So I was just like, went through all these bands that I was in. I was playing shows. So I've been like playing shows, recording off and on for the last 32 years. I've told Jesse that like you were 1 year old and I was already like playing blast beats in grindcore, like in 2 different bands that year.
Needless to say, he's much better at them than I am.
Jesse played drums in bands, so that's what he.
Gotcha.
So I was also coming from like hardcore, which was we also would do shows with death metal, with like all together back then, and then after the 90s, like the early 90s, I kind of retired, one of my many retirements. And I was just learning production so I can do dance music, and I would do DJing. So, if I fast forward to when I looked into finding people to start this band, it was like, okay, maybe there's something going on with bands now. I can like see what's going on the scene, use what I learned with production and DJing to kind of combine those things. And, so we can looking for something that's dance music that I can play drums to and I can produce it. And everything I learned from like listening to the radio, like pop songs and rock songs in the 80s, and what I learned from playing live through the hardcore days. It's just like, it's at that point where it's like, I should have been doing that all along, Well, there was no one there to tell you like, yeah, you should do this, just.
I'll tell you what, like, I know not everybody in the chat has a background playing in grimy punk rock bands, but I do think that there's something about that background that I think maybe kind of helps shape you in some sort of a way. You go through a lot more bullshit, and you're playing faster, you're playing harder, you're building stamina, all of these things that you can carry into your life as you take it easy and start to play some stuff that's maybe not as physically intense, but you've been through, you've played some crazy stuff, and now you can play what you play well. And, you've probably played some shows in some frightening places in less than ideal situations, but now you could play an okay club, and, you worked for it. You made it here. You deserve this.
Yeah. And there's also that feeling, with Jesse and me in this band, you don't know what might happen, because there's all that history there. And it's like, someday this might just all come out. You think you're just going to go see this synth pop band playing, and they just might start playing Black Sabbath.
Sure. I think that you should always have the door open to any possibility, regardless of what type of music it is that you think you're making. If you're in the space and you're jamming on something and it takes over, if the riff takes over, you just gotta hop on that riff eagle and fly. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to songwriting, and I am gonna get to you, Elizabeth. I want to know more about you. I'm gonna get to you, but before we get there, songwriting for this band. Do you write songs in like a traditional band sense, or is it more like a lot of pre-production stuff in terms of the way you write and compose songs, since there is so much of a dance electronic element, and since you're also, doing a lot of the production and things like that? What's the writing process like?
All of the above.
Okay.
Mostly everything we've done up to now has been the most inefficient way we can do it, but it's kind of personal too. So like a lot of things, like we have one of the songs that we have coming out it's totally improvised, and we recorded it live. It was basically just a live recording we were made up on the spot. And like, I just threw some effects on it later. It's like, this is good as it is. But the other song, like we've been messing with it for like a year, playing it over and over again. But a lot of things we do just start off with jamming and recording it, and then listening through the parts, and then like trying to make up parts for a song based on what we improvised. And then we come up with like good keyboard parts, and then Jesse will steal those keyboard parts to play on his bass. And then, yeah, there's a lot of different ways things have happened so far, but we have started, and it's happened before where there's someone on our last album where Elizabeth would just come with the whole song. It's like, here's a song I wrote, and we're like, cool, and we'll come up with our own parts to go with it.
That's awesome. So this is actually a perfect segue. Hooray! Into you, Elizabeth. What is your background? Where did you come from? What is going on? Why do you have such a cool B-52 poster on the wall? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that is my background. I mean, when I was 12 years old, the B-52s were my universe. I mean, they were my tween obsession. Okay. And like, I saw you did a little thing on Wild Planet, and that was like, that was my album. And this was in like, 89, 90 when Cosmic Thing came out. So everybody was like Love Shack and whatever, and that's fine. But like, I was sitting on top of my parents' like speaker in their stereo system, like listening to Bouncing Off the Satellites, and just like the imagination and the way that it was like dark, but also like really hopeful, and like funny, but also kind of creepy, and just the types of sound that they were making. I was totally in love with it. I mean, I grew up in a classical music family. My whole family are classical musicians. My mom is, my dad is, my older sister is, my uncles are in the classical music world too. So it's just been, I grew up around a lot of music. But it's funny hearing people talk about, I just went into this phase or this phase. Like, I feel like I've always just been into like electronic-y music with strong songwriting. I mean, I got my hands on a Howard Jones cassette when I was 7. I got a copy of Action Replay and I just listened to it till it wore out. Like I super, super into it when I was like, 6 or 7 or something. So I just always was into that kind of music. And then when I got older, when I got into my teens, late teens, I started, I got my hands on an acoustic guitar and I started, songwriting and playing shows in coffee shops and stuff. And it was fun. Like I like being able to, sing my songs and tell my stories, but it wasn't the kind of music that I was listening to. But I have always loved people like, Amy Mann or Suzanne Vega or Magnetic Fields were a huge influence on me, like bands that have that kind of almost folky songwriting, but also have like interesting stuff going on production wise.
Yeah. So I'm curious about your background having a classical family. What did your family think of the B-52s?
They were very confused.
So, while all that stuff is going on though, you're still like, you mentioned that you were, you brought up classically trained and so you're still like doing the classical stuff, being trained in those things, but also like just listening to a bunch of post-punk and new wave.
Well, it's funny, growing up, I was never a singer. Like I was the non-musical person in the family.
Okay.
Sure, I sang in the church choir,
sure.
I did stuff, but I was always like the school nerd. Like that was my thing. I did well in school. I was a big reader and a writer. And that was my thing. And it was different from what everybody else did. So it wasn't until I was like, I don't know, in my early 20s, probably that music started to become more something that defined me or that I felt like was something that I did for myself. So I was never like, I've actually had very little formal training. It's something that I've started to pursue as I get older and start to kind of figure out, I want this for all these different reasons, but I didn't do that much of it growing up. That was always sort of what other people did.
Gotcha. So then I'm wondering, how much of a role the people in your family that were, so engrossed in this classical training, like that's one thing. And then you see the B-52s and you're like, this is the complete opposite. I love it. Just kind of like almost like a pseudo rebellion sort of thing, even though you're too young to think about it like that.
I think a little bit. I mean, I don't know. I never thought of myself as rebellious. I never particularly wanted to be, my dad growing up he was not into popular music. He thought it was a sort of a bad influence, I think, on society generally. So I think he was not, not too happy about it. But I was just, I don't know if I thought of it as a rebellion. I was just in love.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I think that, there's like a certain innocence, I think, when you're a kid and you find something, whether it's, maybe a song that is you like, or maybe like something on TV you shouldn't watch. Like when I was a kid growing up watching Beavis and Butthead, my mom did not like the fact that I was watching Beavis and Butthead. But to me, it's not bad. It's just a cartoon.
Oh.
Because I had this this youthful sort of just ignorance to the fact that, that they're, lighting stuff on fire and, talking about boobs and stuff. I'm like, I don't know, like, this is what everybody in my school does. Like, this doesn't really feel like it's super weird.
I wasn't allowed to watch it.
You weren't allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead. Oh, man.
Nah. I still did, but I wasn't allowed to.
Okay. Yeah. What about South Park? That's also of the time.
Same story, yeah. It was frowned upon, but I found my ways.
Yeah, as most do. I wonder what it's like now for parents that are trying to keep their kids away from things. I feel like you just can't. It's probably impossible now, unless you don't give your kid a cell phone or a tablet or something. There's way too much connectivity to everything right now. So
you don't even know what there is to keep them away from. Because it's like, you don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah. That's scary. We're not going to go there. But on the terms of the internet and social media and, you know, being adults that have plenty of other things to do besides playing in bands, but we're still making time for this. How has social media treated you all as musicians? Do you find that it is a useful tool? Do you find that it is an annoyance, or do you think that it's a mixture of the both? Leslie.
So the thing that popped into my head, and this isn't exactly social media, it's more promotional based, but when we were talking about promotional stuff recently, I was like kind of shocked to find out that people just like, you just go on the internet and find people just pay to just listen to your songs, not even do anything about it, but just like listen to the songs so you get like more listens on like Spotify, whatever. I'm like, that's so unfair. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it just has really changed the industry a lot.
Yeah, no, that's the thing that like really, pardon my French, but this boils my piss. Whenever there are people that, you know, will be like, oh, you know, X pop star put out a new song and it already has 25 million YouTube views. I'm like, their label probably paid for 3/4 of those, because it's all part of the promotion budget goes into that now. It's just like, because if people see that this video has like 25 million views, there's going to be people that are like, wow, this has a lot of views, so I'm going to watch it. Or why is everybody watching this? It kind of like instills this manufactured sense of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And it's like, ugh, it's gross. It is the worst. That's probably my least favorite thing about music right now in terms of promotion, because there's no way of knowing like who is actually doing good and who's not. There's no like proper scale for things, even when it comes to album sales. So many artists now, they do like these bundle deals where like you buy a ticket to their concert and you get a digital download code that counts as an album sale for them, which I guess is nice. I mean, if I'm buying tickets to a show, I guess I want to support the artist, but I probably already own the album. And they're just like doing all these little things to rig the system to get like more album sales or more YouTube views, or just why do the numbers matter? I just wish like if I could change anything about social media, I would take away likes and follower counts so there was no numbers attached to it, you know, that were publicly visible. I feel like it would make everybody a lot more sane and grounded.
Then again, that feeling when like a musician that you like something that you did, oh, that's the juice. That's happened to us a couple of times.
Sure.
That's been great.
Sure. No, I think it's great because you have this pipeline that is a direct, you know, line of communication between you and maybe somebody that you really look up to. And I think that's fantastic. That's great. If there's an artist that I look up to that is just like, oh, well, I'm bored one day, I'm going to go through my band's hashtag and I'm going to like photos or maybe comment on some of them. I think that's super wholesome and very refreshing. But if somebody's just kind of like, I put out this new song and I better throw 25 grand at Google so they can make sure that it says it has X number of plays on release day, I'm just kind of like, go fuck yourself. All the things that you could have done with that money. And a lot of the time too, oh, I'm going to go off. I'm sorry. But all these MFers that'll be like, oh, you know, you should be supporting this cause and doing this and that you also know full well are pumping a ton of money into just getting these manufactured numbers. I'm just like, I want to scream. That's like this like DIY part of me going back to that. It's like, do you know what I could do with 25 grand? And you're spending it on fake numbers on a Google website?
That DIY dedication to authenticity will stick with you forever.
Yeah, and it's gonna definitely kick us in the ass too, because you know, nice. Well, they say nice guys finish last, but nice people finish last. It's not a guy thing. I'm trying to be non-binary with my quotes. It's 2020. So with
it's nice here in the back of the pack.
Yeah. So that again, that's kind of like what I was talking about before, just in terms of like what the Pittsburgh scene is like and why I think it's so nice working in this scene, because there isn't like a cool kids club here that you might get in like a New York or an LA or a Chicago. Like, I mean, there might be some people here that think they are. a cool kids club. I can maybe name a few people that are a little snotty, but it's like, whatever. It's not like, it'd be like one thing. Like, say if I was operating in New York, there might be a cool kids club, but you're never sharing the stage with them. You're not playing at those places. Every time I'm around somebody, that hasn't been a lot, but if I'm around somebody in the Pittsburgh music scene that kind of has an attitude, it's like, dog, we're all at the Smiling Moose right now. None of us are cool. It's fine. Let's just pump the brakes on the ego and let's just try to have a good time. I don't understand like why, there are bands that will go out of their way to like, load up all their crap into their cars and drive it across town to be miserable for 2 hours. Like, why are you going to do this if you don't want to be a part of it? Like, I know, sure, it sucks, like we're playing a show on a weeknight and maybe there's only 10 people here, but it's like, we're adults. We knew what we were getting into. Why are you going to try? You've been playing shows for 15 years. You know damn well there's not going to be anybody at Howlers. Well, I mean, there's never going to be anybody at Howlers again. That's kind of sad. I'm just saying. I mean, I bring it up, but
real hard nowadays.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like, why? Like, what do people expect? It seems like you all have pretty good heads on your shoulders and you're all pretty positive when it comes to all of these things. But if there was anything that you could change, pretend that COVID-19 wasn't happening, but if there's anything else that you could change about the Pittsburgh music scene right now, is there anything that you would want to change? We'll go with Jesse since you haven't talked in a bit.
I'm thinking about it. Seems like in a weird sort of way, having too many venues seems to be a problem. It seems like there are a lot of shows, which is cool, but it sort of dilutes the pool.
Sure.
Splits people up. I don't know. And that's like the only thing that, I mean, it's not like a cross I would bear or anything like that, but it just seems like Pittsburgh has a very vibrant, small music community that's very atomized.
It's kind of funny. I think that a lot of us kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. And I'm speaking from personal experience as somebody that plays in 3 bands. I'm not in a unique position as a musician in Pittsburgh that's in more than one band. And a lot of us are in multiple bands. And it's like, we're like clogging our own pipe in a way, like it's like, well, I would love to go see your band play a show, but I have practice with my death metal band this week. And then like, oh, like, well, you're playing a show on Sunday too? Okay, well, I have practice with Some Faith that day. But then it's like, so I'm a problem because I'm in 3 different bands. And then your band's also a problem because you're playing 3 or 4 shows a week in the same city when other bands could use that stage time. There's a whole lot of problems, but there's no like right or wrong answer, really. I feel like, I don't know. Do what makes you happy.
Tricky balancing act between wanting to be in a band and wanting to be in an audience. It seems like a lot of people want to be in bands rather than audiences, but need audiences as well.
I think that that's one thing that if I were to say anything else that I think could be an issue, that actually it is definitely an issue, are a lot of people that book shows and play shows for themselves and are not necessarily thinking about the fact that you are putting a certain responsibility on your shoulders when you step on a stage. You are an entertainer and you have a job to do for your customer. I don't want to call your family or your friends customers, but in a way, you've dragged them out of the house. You owe them a good show. But, a lot of times bands just don't think about that. They'll take forever to set up, or they'll start 10 hours late when, Uncle Dino has to be in bed because he works in the morning, like whatever is going on. And just being sensitive to those sorts of things. Also, I think knowing like it takes some time, but after you've played a handful of shows and you kind of understand where your crowd is, like knowing like what your crowd likes and where they like to go, and just like the behaviors of your crowd. I think that's something that a lot of bands on like a DIY level don't always think about. It's just like, we're going to play a show and everything's just going to work out. And it's just like, no, it's not. You got to think about these things. I like to think about being in a band as if I like own a restaurant. And the songs that we write, every time we write a new song, it's like we're introducing something new to the menu. And, it has to be similar to the things that we served before, but it has to be new and exciting so we can maybe, get some new people to come in the door that weren't crazy about the things on the menu before, but also, get the people that have been coming forever to bring more people.
I feel like that is something that we've had a good experience with. Like, we haven't played that many shows, like considering how long we've been together. I wish, there's a part of me that wishes like, oh, if we'd done twice as many shows and then we would have had twice as much fun. And at the same time, I feel like all the shows we've done have been really special. Like our first show was opening up for Men Without Hats, which is like, that was a bucket list. That was great. And like we did a show at Black Forge, and it was really cool because it was all ages and it was a little bit earlier. So we got like a totally different group of people in than maybe would typically go to other shows we did, or we've like opened up for other bands. Like when we opened for Rose of the West, like that Mr. Small's Funhouse, that was just a really nice show because we were playing with the Emily Rogers duo. Like it was just a good group of musicians all together. I feel like the shows that we've done have all had something kind of neat and special about them. And like, I don't know, I've appreciated that.
I think the thing that's great, about the music that you're doing is that, while you maybe, in a textbook you're doing, like this, darker electronic, new wave, sort of post-punk, sort of this and that 80s inspired sort of thing. But you could really play a show with just about anybody. You're not really stuck. Whereas, like maybe, back in Jesse's grindcore days, he wouldn't have been playing any shows with Emily Rogers. But, it's like, on the surface, it's like, okay, but this might not make sense, but it's still like, this is music that people can actually like hang out and enjoy. It's not too abrasive, even though I love the abrasiveness of it. I think that it's cool to have that accessibility. It gives you a lot more opportunities to play in the city. And I think that if you are a band that could play with a bunch of other different bands, it's a little bit easier for you to play more frequently versus like, the grindcore band that's just playing with the other 4 grindcore bands every other week at the Smiling Moose over and over and over again. It's exhausting, and there's definitely those bands that exist. And shout outs to all of them because
I've been in those bands before, playing the same show at Roboto every month.
Yeah,
the same bands.
Yeah,
fun times, but whenever you're hauling in all that equipment and straining your muscles, playing drums for 10 minutes because that's all you can manage with blast beat.
Yeah,
to 10 people, and they're all members of the other bands. It can wear on you. But I mean, even with our current shows that we've been playing, we haven't had any sort of we haven't been really blowing the doors out in terms of attendance. But the shows have been fun in their own ways, like Liz said.
No, I think that it's huge to keep that mindset going because, like, we've already addressed the fact there's been so many venues and so many shows, and I mean, the reality of the situation is it's like when you're just starting, like, people don't care. And it's really hard to get people to care. All you can do is care about what you're doing and put that energy out there into the world so people could be like, what's up with them? They seem like they're having a good time. I want to know what's going on over there. It's like hearing the ice cream truck down the street. You're like, ice cream truck, people run over. They want to get something. And I think that's it's super, important to stay positive. I hope, we're able to all play some shows and stuff sometime soon. We still have to play a show together.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, we had our show booked on April 1st, and I had to tell so many of my friends so many times that this is not an April Fool's joke.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen, and then all of a sudden the world ended. So
yeah.
what can you do?
Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing that we can do aside
I'd love to do something. I'd love to do something with that group, though, even if it's just like putting out a little 3-song mini release or something, like Some Faith in Us and Chantilly. And I think it's such a neat juxtaposition of different bands.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to make that show happen whenever we can. I have all of the resources to do like live stream shows, but like I just like really don't want to. Is like much as I'm here for technology and the future, part of me is just like I'd rather just wait so we could do it for real, because like I don't know if I want to necessarily encourage people staying in the house any longer than they have to.
Yeah.
So I like, you know, there's part of me that's like really worried that's like, we start doing all these live shows, people will be like, you know, I watched the live stream. I'll just wait till the next time they do that. You know, I kind of you want to leave them wanting more. And I think that's a big part of the reason why maybe, you know, me and Indigo haven't released anything yet. I think part of us is just like, we're just kind of like, it just doesn't feel right yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe next week we'll get bored and be like, oh, here's a song. Because that's the other problem too, is like the idea was that we were going to play these shows and then put out an album because we have like a dozen songs. But now it's like, well, it seems kind of silly to put out an album. Should we just put out singles? But I'm old school. The idea of singles is bullshit to me. I want a whole album. And I'm so torn because I know like what's better from a promotional standpoint in 2020, but also, you know, do I do what's better for 2020? Or do I just continue to live selfish and make the wrong decision, but do what makes me happy? It's the struggle of an artist, I suppose.
I got to say, I've wondered what it's like to have started a band or been in like a brand new formed band just before the lockdown hit. Because I think about how awkward it is for our band. We've been together for a little over 4 years now. We came to know each other through the band. We didn't know each other beforehand. And we've learned to work together very well as a band. So we adapted to the social distancing and isolation pretty easily, especially with, you know, 2020 technology. If this was happening, if I was dealing with this in 2007 with my punk bands, that would have been the end of bands.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, makes me feel kind of bad for, you know, people who seem to miss the boat, so to speak, in terms of doing anything in 2020.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I play in a death metal band, and we played a show. It was March 11th. That was the last show I played. So it was like right in the thick of everything. Cause like, I think it was like that weekend when everybody was like, stop doing everything. You know,
yeah.
Like the craziest thing that was happening before that was like fucking Starbucks wouldn't take my reusable cup anymore. They were like, I'm going to get sick. And I'm like, ugh. And then the next thing you know, 5 days later, it's like, don't leave the house. And I'm like, the world's ending. But I still got to play a show in between Starbucks not taking my reusable cup and the world ending. So I appreciated that. But yeah, with Some Faith, it felt like, has everybody here rode a roller coaster at one point in time in their life? You know,
yeah,
how like let's say it's like the Steel Phantom, right, Kennywood? You're like, click, 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 and we're going up the thing, and it's like the car is about to just tip down over that first hill, and we got stuck right before it was about to go down the hill. That's what it felt like. It was just like, we're just so ready. We'd been climbing, going for it. 'Cause I mean, like, next month will be 1 year since me and Indigo started that project. So like, we started it last August, and then we did nothing but just like write and lock stuff down until like February, which was whenever we started agreeing to do shows and stuff. So there was a good like half year of just like complete radio silence, just really working on stuff and like putting a live show together with all the lights and a projector and, getting our little outfits together with special little outfits and all our dumb little branding, like we're gonna have a show. We're all excited about it. And then like now it's just like, I got this, sick pair of all black overalls sitting in the closet for no good reason that maybe I'll get to wear one day, maybe not. Who knows?
You'll wear them someday.
Yeah. I'll have to. I think.
Yeah, you got to have some faith.
So.
Well, I gotta say, I hope that you do record something soon because ever since I heard about this band, I've been so curious to hear what.
I will tell you, we've been recording the past few weeks. We have like 2 songs mastered and done.
Will you sneak me something? We'll talk later.
Bands got to stick together.
Yeah, we're like really, really, yeah. I do think, we should definitely stick together for sure. I think that's where we're trying to. That's why I was talking about, should we just start putting some of this stuff out, or do we sit on it? Like, I just don't know what to do yet. It just feels so weird now to like release music but not be playing shows. But nobody's playing shows, and a lot of people were spending a lot of time on their phones, so arguably it may be the best time to put something out.
I know I'm listening to a lot more music. Like, I'm doing a lot more just like careful listening than I was before this.
You mentioned a little bit ago that you have some new stuff on the horizon. Can I get some more details regarding these juicy new Take Me With You songs? Anybody? Leslie?
I don't know how much I'm trying to like. Okay.
Spill the beans. It's okay.
I would say the new song that we have out with kind of a B-side release that's gonna come out with it as a single. I love this song. It's called. Am I allowed to say what it's called? It's called Stranger. I just want to make sure because it's called Stranger. Jesse actually came to practice one day with this like really cool sounding thing, and he was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And we were just all like drooling because it was so cool. Then Liz made the lyrics, and it's about the main hook is like, "Don't be a stranger, not now," and it ties in so well with social distancing. It's almost like the universe playing a trick on us, I feel like. Kind of this aesthetic of like looking out the window and seeing someone that you can't really interact with. And so I think that's part of the reason why we are wanting to release this now-ish, because it has, even though we had no idea that what was coming whenever we started working on it, it just has been kind of a narrative of the times, and the music video we're making along with it will also kind of reflect that. Anything else to add, guys?
No, I just agree that it's funny that we started writing it in like the fall of last year, because it really it sort of takes on a whole new meaning now.
Yeah, we're also making a music video for it and trying to capture the sort of new meaning that Stranger has taken on in the wake of COVID-19. But it's also very exciting because it's our first new output as a 4-piece. We did our first album as a 5-piece, and afterwards we decided that we worked better, more efficiently as a 4-piece, and had to sort of go through another period of learning how to do our music over again with reduced personnel. But this is all brand new material that we've written, just the 4 of us, and I'm really excited to share it with people.
Is there any specific time frame on the horizon, or are we just playing it loose right now? It'll happen when it happens.
We keep setting dates, and then
We're moving along. We're more focused on having the complete package rather than meeting a deadline.
Sure. I think
because honestly, our band has gone through like several sorts of false starts between like member changes, not being able to keep a keyboardist for a while, not having a keyboardist for a long time, and then member changes and relearning how to do our songs. We went into 2020 with the goal of, getting on as many fests as possible, trying to be more public because we've saw it as our opportunity that has finally arrived to be an active, publicly existing band for a continuous amount of time. Mm-hmm. And then 2020 became what it is.
Yeah.
So this pushed everything back. But, 2021's looking good.
I think that, again, I said it before. I think it's great that you're all still, working and doing what you can for the project, even being socially distant. You're doing things that are very productive for the future of the band. And it's awesome to see that. I think that that's one of the great things about the technology that we have is that you're able to work together and have your meetings and work stuff out, and we can have this chat, and I'm going to put this up on the internet next week, and a lot of people might watch it, and, we're still networking, and we're still doing positive things for our art, even though, things aren't necessarily in our favor right now. We're still, perseverance. It's great. The DIY spirit is alive and well. With everything else, this is every episode that I've recorded in the past 3 months. This has been my least favorite part because this is usually when, it's okay, you got some music coming out, you got any shows coming up, but there's nothing to talk about. So it's just very like, it's that hard little slap in the face of reality of what we're dealing with. So before we wrap this all up, I kind of want to do a quick round table with everybody regarding any hobbies that you've been doing, not music related, to help in the pandemic. I'll start. I got back to drawing again. I used to draw a lot, visual arts. I hadn't done anything in a very long time, in a couple years, I'd say. But I've almost completed 3 big pieces since I've been in lockdown, and I feel good about it. So that's what I've done. Leslie, what have you been up to?
I guess I've been doing a lot of going out and hiking. So I've been spending a lot of time in the forest. And also right before COVID struck, I started going to take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes.
Wow.
And recently that reopened up, for better or for worse, but I'm going to that now again, and that's fun.
That's great.
So like learning how to like break people's arms, that's kind of my hobby right now.
That rules. That's awesome. I think that, the exercise is great. The discipline is good. The self-confidence that it seems like you're already a pretty confident go-getter, but you'll just have more of that now. And hey, you can never have too much of that. I think that's great. Jesse, what have you been up to?
Video games. Just been playing video games. I've been playing role-playing games. Is the sort of like an all-in-one package of watching a movie, reading a book, and playing something entertaining.
Bro, we're the same age. You don't gotta talk to me about role-playing games.
I'm doing it for the audience.
Yeah, we're birds of a feather over here. I'll tell you that.
Other boomers watching it. I just want to be inclusive.
Yeah, fair enough. That's very thoughtful of you. All right, Thomas, it's your turn. What have you been doing?
I think a lot of people have been at home, like on the social media. So what I started like recording old demos, like stuff like people I've been in bands with. Like it's like, hey, it's the 30th anniversary for this demo tape, stuff like that. Getting videos of things we did and putting them up on YouTube. Have a little like old school group. So basically, like putting stuff on the internet that wasn't there before.
Hey, you're contributing to arts and culture. And you're being a bit of a historian, for
Exactly.
you and your friends.
Yeah, it's like local history too.
Yeah, that stuff's important. You're going to be very thankful in 5 to 10 years whenever you're like, hey, I have this now. And that's great. There's so much stuff from when maybe I was like, in my teens, and we had computers, but not like we have computers now, and like dumb little songs that me and my friends made that I wish were actually recorded. They just never existed. I'm sure somebody has like a waterlogged cassette tape that was dubbed somewhere, but it's gone forever. It's gone. I'm never going to hear that stuff again. Yeah, it's sad. I'm sure it was all garbage anyways, but it'd be nice to hear it.
Yeah.
Liz, what you been doing?
I'm bad at hobbies. I do music, and I hang out with my friends these days, mostly virtually, and I'm just a huge work nerd. So mostly I've just been going much deeper into my research. I teach psychology at Duquesne, and I'm doing a research project right now on autism and furries. So basically people who are like in the furry community and on the autism spectrum, and sort of what draws them to participate. So that's been so much fun. Every year at Anthrocon, I do interviews, I do focus groups, I get all this data. And it's so fun to do the interviews that I haven't had time to actually sit down and analyze them and write them up. So that's a lot of what I've been doing, is just going through these interview transcripts and figuring out what I'm going to write about, because it's just so fun.
That's you really threw me for a curveball there. But no, I think that's great. I think that rules. I think that I don't even know what to say about that. I'll just have to keep in the loop with that. I want to,
You actually believe that?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it was real.
I totally believed it. It felt very genuine.
Half of our band are teachers, and half of our band are punks.
Yin and yang. It's great. It's important balance.
The teacher half is the half that drinks.
There is actually vodka in this. I spiked the seltzer. I should plug my book. I have a book coming out tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah. This is what I do when I'm not doing music. It's called Living on the Spectrum, and it's about people on the autism spectrum. It's about young people on the spectrum kind of figuring out their identity and figuring out what does it mean to be on the autism spectrum. What is autism? People talk about it like a disease. People talk about it like an identity, like a cultural difference, like a minority status. And it's about young people who are just trying to make their way in all the controversy and figure out what it is to them. Also, role-playing games. Turns out role-playing games are very important for this process.
Wow. I feel like there's a potential whole other can of worms that we could get into regarding all of that. And maybe someday in the future, if you would ever be curious, I would love to talk with you more about that, because I'm actually really curious, and I will, I'll try to not swear so much, and we can have a bit more of a kind academic conversation, because I'm curious.
Swearing is good. I guess.
Okay. All right. Fuck yeah. Thank you.
My rep.
So with all that being said, I think I'm going to wrap this all up. One more time, I do want to, I have your Facebook page up here. So if anybody is still kind of hanging out that isn't already friends or family with you, check them out. They're on Facebook.com, the website. TMWY Band. Do you have like an Instagram or a Twitter or a TikTok or a Snapchat or any of that stuff?
Yeah, the Instagram is also TMWY Band.
Cool. And you got that old music that old music that you put out a whole year ago. Isn't that so funny? Like, you remember when you could like put out an album 5 years ago and it was still your new album, but now if it's like 5 weeks old, it's like ancient. It's dinosaur dust. All right. But yeah, so there is some new music on the horizon, but until then, you can check out A Building a Dreaming over on the bandcamp.com website. I have that pulled up right here. It's very bright. I don't know if you can tell my face got really bright when I pulled that up, but anyways, with all of that being said, I think I'm going to do an outro, and I just want to thank you all for taking the time. It's been lovely.
Thank you.
It's been really fun. Thank you.
You got it.
So
Thank you.
And that is all, folks. Thanks so much for listening. One more time. Thomas, Liz, Leslie, Jesse, take me with you. The one and only. Thanks for being here. And there's a friend. Who's that friend? Hold on. Who is that friend?
Otto.
Otto. All right. Well, I'm going to do my outro again, and we're going to shout out to Otto. And that is all, folks. Thanks so much for listening. One more time. Thomas, Liz, Leslie, Jesse, Otto, take me with you and company. Thank you so much. I'll be back again in a couple days with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sykes. Start the beat 2020. Woo, woo. Thanks for listening. And we are done. That is a podcast, my friends.
World exclusive.
World exclusive. We did it. So, thank you all so much.